For most of that summer I cursed the fact that I was once again in Venice. But it had been raining in England, not been back to Venice for nearly a year, so on an impulse I packed my bags. It was June when I arrived, and my heart sank as I surveyed the crowds. In June, the city becomes an appalling museum, and wherever one goes, there are artists searching for the perfect view with planes of light on ancient stone. Venice likes to play at carnival all year round, so nothing surprises me, and at first I barely noticed what was going on. In reality, the place has the mentality of a village. For in spite of everything generations of writers and artists have done to maintain its sense of grandeur, underneath, Venice is a city of birds and gossip, and the unexpected, of course, which I'd forgotten about. The woman had a birdcage strapped to her wrists, walking at a great pace, mingling amongst the bobbing heads that thronged the narrow alleyways and bridges, and tailing her was an elderly male friend of mine from long ago. "Ah, right," I thought, draining my coffee, and off I went, following them both. Suddenly I was no longer bored. All around, street musicians were playing a tune I recognised but could not place. I had discovered the watery city many years before on my honeymoon through Tearne's ravishing watercolours and Bonington's images of Santa Maria della Salute, and later I discovered Ruskin's stones. And later still, I'd been in love, and the stones took on a marvellous pink-stained sheen, marble smooth and sun-warmed in summer, wrapped in a tulip fog in winter, with a beauty that had nothing to do with Ruskin. Now look here, tailing a person isn't something I do every day, and I can honestly say I've never tailed two people at the same time. I had a devil of a job keeping up. One minute they were in front of me, but then I'd lose sight of them entirely in the crowds. It was hot. I'm no longer young, but still I set off at a trot. And all the time there was that bloody music driving me insane. Every corner I turned, every narrow calle, at every dripping water pump, someone was playing the same blasted tune. On and on walked the bird woman, her red skirt billowing, stopping to lay a lily at some roadside shrine. Through the crowd she went, over bridges, by the water's edge, on, and behind her, struggling to keep up, was my friend from home. And then, would you believe it, 1,000 golden fish filled the sky. A pair of them were leading me a fine dance. They disappeared into a museum. As I watched, with amazement, the bird woman placed a pair of white gloves on a gondola. The exhibit reminded me of the day my husband died. We had been in Venice then, too, and when his funeral barge floated away from me, the light cast a shadow on my widowhood. My friend skulking nearby saw me, and with a start acknowledged me with a wry nod. We talked, it began to rain, and, well, he suggested I go back to his place for a coffee. We returned to his apartment, laughing at our espionage. The light from the water outside reflected blue against the window. I remembered the rooms from years before, when we'd both been young. It had always had the feeling of a cell under the waves. Prospero waits me, I used to say. That had been many years before. We'd passed each other like ships in the night. We'd both married others. I noticed the place was a shrine to some lost love. There was a photograph of a woman. I asked no questions, just looked around. Time stood still. This was the real Venice, I thought. There are narrow streets branching into narrower alleyways. Behind elaborate silent windows, mysterious Italian lives lie in slumber. What is this strange attraction, this peculiar ecstasy that hides amongst the back alleys? 10 paces is all the boundary between two households. We talked and talked. Later, at dusk, we decided to go out to eat. Night fell like a stone on the water. The sea was indistinguishable from the sky and the lagoon, its currents hidden by darkness. We finished our meal, drained the last of our wine. The proprietor bade us good night as we walked back across the now deserted streets. Without a word, we were heading in the direction of my Prospero's cell. But then, rounding a corner, we came to an abrupt halt, for there, to our astonishment, was that bloody woman again. The bird woman leant out towards the darkened waters of the canal. She looked as though she were calling to her doves. The city itself had shed its predictability and taken wings. At this, we both turned towards the bird woman, determined to speak to her. But she had vanished. And though we walked down many of the small calles, she was nowhere to be found. It was late as we recrossed Piazzale Roma. A necklace of topaz lights encircled the dark waters of the lagoon, broken only by the shadowy lines of Briccoli. She was floating bird cages along the canal in the direction of the Salute. Astonished, we followed the passage of one of them with our eyes, and even as we watched, to our amazement, a group of Venetians stepped out from nowhere and began to dance the tango on its floodlit steps. The air smelt salty in the summer breeze. The airport bus was starting up. It swung out, heading towards the bridge that led out of the city, and as it passed, we glimpsed for one last time the wings of the doves fluttering ghostly white against the window.